Well, howdy there, Moose fans. Lone Moose here. How's it going? 95 days and counting. What the heck does that mean? Well, stick around, folks, and I will answer that question, as well as I'm going to answer a question from one of my subscribers that comes up every now and then. And I've never really told the long story behind it, so I'll explain that. Let me get everything ready. I'll be back in just a few minutes. So, 95 days, what does that mean? Today is February 22nd, 2022. And, you know, I've been talking about moving to Alaska for a long, long time. Now, how many of you out there know what D-Day is? I do, because I'm a military historian. D-Day, June 6, 1944, the day the Allies launched their invasion of continental Europe to retake it from the Axis powers. June 6th, okay? June 6th is also my birthday. Not 1944 by any stretch, I'm not that damned old, but just the day. But I'm getting ready to finally make the move to Alaska. I have, you know, been tinkering with it for a couple of years now, and kind of got into a funk and a depression last fall into the winter with all the things going on in West Virginia with my parents, and you know, contemplating how that might have a negative effect on my move to Alaska. But I finally made the decision, make plans, do your best to stick to them. If you have to adapt and overcome, you do. Because what's one of the first things they teach you in the military? No good plan survives first contact with the enemy. Well, it's kind of the same story. So my plans may have to be modified, but as of now, 95 days from now, I plan on hitting the road, heading north to Alaska. It won't be on my birthday. I've been actually contemplating postponing it, you know, about week and a half or whatever to actually leave here, just so I could say, you know, D-Day, leaving Texas for Alaska. Don't know if that's going to happen, but right now that's not in the plans. I plan on leaving the end of Memorial Day weekend. And Memorial Day weekend's got, you know, a lot of context in my life too. But a lot of things have happened to me on Memorial Day weekends, good, bad, otherwise. But that's my plan right now, to head up. I'm going to be doing the U-Pack thing again, so you know there'll be another video on that as I go along. I will be taking the new truck. You know, you've seen that in the Carvana video. The excuse me, my 2015 GMC with the topper on the back. I'm planning on taking 4 of my dogs with me. Jax, Ganja, Chloe, and Brittany. My son wants to keep Zoe because that's his dog, and I'm okay with that. And then Luke will be going with Natty, and he's no cold weather dog. He's kind of a Rhodesian Ridgeback Greyhound mix, and so now he's not really a good candidate to move up north. But doing that, pulling a trailer with my Harley on it, the 4-wheeler on it, and probably a few other odds and ends things, and head from here all the way up north into Montana. It looks like the crossing point will be in Montana, up across Canada, the Alcan Highway to Tok, or Tok, however you want to pronounce it, T-O-K, and from there down to Anchorage, and Anchorage to the peninsula. I'm estimating a drive total time of about 10 days. You know, pulling the trailer is going to slow me down a little bit, and also having the dogs, so there's going to have to be more frequent stops. And we're probably going to end up camping most of the way up. Either at, you know, like KOAs have their, sorry I'm moving and it's getting kind of shadowy there. You know, KOAs have their camping cabins. So we may try something like that, but there's no hotel that's going to let me take 4 dogs in. I mean, that's just reality. And I should get up there about a week before the U-Pack trailer gets there, by their current estimate anyway, which I need that length of time because I have got to get all the junk and stuff out of that shipping container that is on the property right now. You know, when I bought the property with the container on it last year, they said, yeah, then there is some building materials in there. There's some windows, and there's a little 20 or 24 inch wide propane stove that I've already told Sean from Sean in Alaska. He can have that for his cabin if he wants it, because I've got propane cooktops that I'll be using, and that remodel of the shipping container, as well as when I build out the big house. But I got to get everything out of there so that basically use that shipping container as shelter from the weather for me and the dogs while we get busy. My son-in-law Keith is going to come up. He's a construction foreman for Habitat for Humanity out of Dallas, and basically in the course of about 2 or 3 weeks we're going to get that shipping container dressed out, finished out as a small cabin, and eventually it'll become a guest cabin, so that we got a place to stay. Time and money will determine how far I get into starting on the big cabin this year. Not only my time and money, but time and money from I have to have Jeff Tubbs and his crew come in and clear off and level some of the property, and get a concrete contractor to come in and do the slab for the big house. Then move the shipping container onto half of it and get a second shipping container on it, and use the space between them as kind of a garage, and then the house itself is going to get built on top of that. I'm looking at about 1,200 square feet right now. So that's the plan. That's what 95 days and counting is as of from today. Now, of course, like I said, no good plan survives first contact with the enemy. So, my departure date may have to move a day or two one way or the other, but that's my target. If you don't have, goals and plans, all you're going to do is spin your wheels. Now, the second question that I had come up from a relatively new subscriber that is also kind of a budding friendship, somebody who lives up in Alaska, was, well, how did you get, bit by the Alaska bug? What made you want to move up here? And I don't think I've ever told you guys the real history behind this, so that's kind of what this section is for right now. Sorry, my eye's itching. 5th grade, that's when it happened. That's when the Alaska love bug bit me in the butt, and it has never healed. It's kind of gone into remission a few times, but it always comes right back out when the stimulus is right. So anyway, my 5th grade year at Hartman Elementary School in Kansas City, Missouri. I cannot remember my teacher's name. I think it was Mrs. McGee, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But my teacher that year had spent her summer up there teaching at the native school in what was then called Point Barrow. Now its name has reverted back to its Inuit name, which I don't know and probably couldn't pronounce. But she spent that whole summer up there teaching in the native school. And then she comes back to, all of us wonderful rowdy 5th graders, and, minds just growing exponentially and sucking up everything we can, and getting ideas about how the world works and things like that. And she just bombarded us that year, excuse me, with photos, slides, film strips, if you're old enough to remember what those things were. She had some of them made into film strips. Some of the souvenirs and the artifacts she brought back. I mean, man, that just set the hook in me. And kind of had that dream in the back of my mind for several years, but then you get into your mid to late teen years, and you start dating, and you figure out, hey, what am I going to do with my life? And you kind of lose sight of some things. But I ended up down in North Texas, and I was working as a police officer for one of the North Texas cities, a Dallas suburb, and I was at one point working the jail for a few months. And we had a young man who was about my same age as one of our jail prisoners, and we made him a trustee. In other words, let him out do some work around the police headquarters building and in the jail for us, sweeping and cleaning up, things like that. But we'd sit around at night talking, and he had actually been up working on the pipeline. And he had come back to visit his family, his parents, and got stopped and Oops. He had, several $100s worth of traffic tickets and fines. So he got put into pokey with us. And he was there for about 6 weeks working off all of his fines and things. But man, the stories he told, and he was doing his best to convince me that when he got out, I needed to just quit the police department and just go north with him. Get up there, work on the pipelines. He was telling the stories, 4 or 5 guys living in a trailer, sharing that and bread at $5 a loaf and everything, but was just making money hand over foot. And I really thought about it, and but just to be quite honest, at that point in my life, I didn't have the self-confidence to do it. So that kind of, slipped away. He went back up north. I met a lady who became my first wife, and, we had kids, and life took off from there. So, the Alaska dream kind of went into remission again for a while. Until about 2000, late 2005, early 2006. And I'm working for the VA Benefits Administration and the Salt Lake office. And the Salt Lake office actually oversaw the office in Anchorage and also in Fort Harrison, Montana. The director there was a director for all 3 locations. And there was a situation that came up that an employee had to be replaced up in Anchorage. And when they first made the position announcement, of course I applied for it, but they had exactly 1 applicant, me. Well, that does not give you a viable pool to work from. So I talked to the director a couple of times, and I came up with an idea, and he liked it. So I developed a concept for it, and pitched it. He liked it. He took it all the way up to DC headquarters, and they redid some position descriptions. The announcement was coming out. And so February of 2006, I go up to Alaska for my first time to be boots on the ground. Cameron, my son, was a little guy. He was 5 and a half at the time, and so we went up and spent a week there. I met with the RO director at that point in time, get an idea of what life up there was like and everything. And unofficially, I had been told it was my job. But when the announcement came out, a few people applied for it, and when the announcement came of who was selected, it wasn't Bill. So that was a big heartbreak. But life goes on. I applied for some other positions and ended up going to what we call the central office, VBA headquarters in DC, which was a great thing because that opened some other doors for me and allowed me to be a part of a program called IDES, the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, that I basically helped build VA's part of that, was the face of VA to the military services, and it's made very significant differences in the lives of over 1/3 wounded warriors since our first case came through. So something to be very proud of. But, flip time back a little bit when I was still in the Army in the 90s and married to Nancy. We had bought some property in Miles City, Montana. 20 acres remote land, about 10 miles outside of town. Because at that point in time, my goal had been to, finish my master's in history. And when I got out of the Army, I still had my LPN, licensed practical nurse. I would have my master's in history and could teach at the junior college there. So life was going to be grand. But yeah, if you've ever been in the Army, don't make too many long-term plans because things will change, and they did. But when Nancy and I split, she wanted to keep that property. And as I was part of the settlement, she got that. And now, 22 years later, she still got it. Never done anything with it. It was just mainly because she didn't want me to have it. But, bought some more remote property from the same company, Rocky Mountain Timberlands, in Montana, with Martha and Cameron. And when we went up to look at it in 2010, because I think I bought it in 2008 or 2009, property was supposed to have power at the property line. No power. Contacted Rocky Mountain, told them what the deal was, and I said, yeah, we were hoping to have it there by now. I said, okay, I'm giving you a year to get it there. If the property's not, power's not at the property within a year, then we got a problem. We had a problem. It didn't get there. So I ended up having to take some legal action against the realtor's license. And they finally came back and offered me a settlement and said what they would do is take all of the principal plus all the interest I had paid on that property, and I could apply it to any other property in their inventory. Now, at that point in time, they had property all over Montana, they had some in New Mexico, and they had some in Alaska. And they had a lot that looked pretty cool, 22.5 acres. Bingo, sign me up. So, 2014, I go up to see this property that I had for a couple of years. I learned a real hard lesson. And that lesson was, Alaska maps that show dedicated street names or road names, that's more of an idea than a reality. You know, that property had been platted like 20 years before. There was two 50-acre or two 50-lot developments, phase 1 and phase 2. And, you know, all these roads were named and everything. Yeah, right. When I went up, I found that the main road running right through the whole thing was barely a four-wheeler path, if that. I was so afraid I was going to get hit with damages for scratching up the rental car. That's how bad and how close in the alder had grown. That you barely get a 5-foot wide vehicle through it. But, you know, went stomping around and looked at the property, and I actually kind of liked it. But a couple of things struck me. That number one, out of those 100 lots, none, zero, zip, nilch, nada, had anything built on them. No one had ever done anything on any of those properties. So, you know, that was kind of problematic to start with. And a lot of the land was really boggy, kind of a marshy, mushy land. So there was maybe a couple, 2 to 3 good acres out of all of that, really, that you could do something with. And, of course, 2014, I'd see I'm, 61 at the time. Yeah, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea to try carving a homestead out in the middle of nowhere at this point in my life. You know, it's reality. Age is setting in, some physical infirmities are setting in, and I finally decided to heck with it. Maybe I better give this up. So I tried selling the property, which took about 2 years, maybe 3, I don't remember exactly now. But at the same time, my buddy Jim from Woolly Rhino Adventures. You know, Jim and I had gone to high school together and had kind of been rivals in ROTC, and through our 4 years, Jim ended up being a top dog and I was number 2. Still were pretty good friends through all them, and we had reconnected on Facebook a few years before, probably about 2015, 2016 time. You know, message each other back every so often, and then, you know, 2019, Jim says, "Hey, I just bought some land from the state up in Alaska, and I'm going up this summer to check it out. Yeah, it might be quite a slog to try and find it because it's supposed to be real remote." And I'm like, ding, 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 been there, done that. "Hey, Jim, you want some help?" Just typical smart-ass comment. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So we end up meeting up in the Anchorage airport sometime, I think it was in August of 2019, which was 48 years since we had last seen each other face to face, which was graduation night in 1971. And I mean, friendship and everything just immediately rekindled, bonded, and, you know, was cast in stone at that point in time. So we spent the summer up there, you know, that was time trying to find his property, and it was even worse than the one I had before. So I ended up not going with that. We looked at a bunch of other properties, and we went back a month later with our own individual lists of properties that we wanted to look at, and didn't find, well, Jim found one he wanted to make an offer on, but somebody beat him to it by a couple hours. I didn't really find anything that just grabbed me, and this is all in the Kenai Peninsula area. But a buddy of ours, Chuck, who had taught us how to fish, if you've seen my Fishing the Kenai River video, I think kind of introduced Chuck a little bit, said he knew of a guy that had some property, was selling it for sale by owner. Were we interested? So we started looking into it, and Jim had made some contacts to him, make some offers, counter offers. We finally decided to buy it together, and we bought it in December of 2019, right as COVID was winding up. And if you watch my other videos, you know what happened after that. So that's kind of how Alaska, yeah, that viral Alaska bug bit me in the ass. And it's kind of like having cold sores. You know, every so often it'll flare back up and then it'll go in remission for a long time. But it's about to happen, and it's about to happen big time. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe. If you hit the notify bell, you'll be notified when I make new videos. And stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming up. I'm going to be shooting a lot of footage on the drive up there and as things really get going. So I appreciate all of my subscribers now. If you would, please, like I said, leave me any thoughts or comments below. I'll try and answer them as best I can. In the meantime, this is Low Moose out. I'll see you on